review on this book called Outback. This is a story about a young couple backpacking, and they went to the Outback in Australia. And their names are Rita and his name is like Berners or something. But anyway, they were driving on to a property in the Outback, lonely roads, what have you. They go missing. Now, Lucas Walker, who's a cop, he came to the small town because that's where he was brought up by his granny, and granny's dying. So he gets called in, although he's off duty and he's on holiday, he gets called in to look for this couple. So he does start looking. Eventually, Rita's sister, who is with the CIB in Germany, she arrives in Australia to find the heat, the flies, and because we're talking outback farming country. So she tries then to look for her sister. So a lot of events happen. She comes up with that maybe they were picked up by a truck driver, and so a lot of truck drivers were interviewed. What she did find while she was looking was the fact that other girls had gone missing, and all in the very same circumstances. So the story goes on. She interviews, and then all of a sudden, Barbara, which is Rita's sister, goes missing. So Lucas starts looking for her as well, because she's been contacting him daily with new things she'd found out, etc., etc. Now, I was loving this book, absolutely, and I was going to give it a 5. But because of the ending, the way it ended, I've dropped it down to a 4.5. But I still do think it's a good read, and I'm obviously not going to go much into the story, because I feel that when you do that, people think, oh yeah, I worked out what's going to happen from what Moira said. So I'm not going to go into too much of the story. It is a good read, and it's by Patricia Wolf, and yeah, so it's a good Aussie story. So it's I'd say a 4.5 out of 5. So yeah, it sort of reminds me of some things that have really happened in the outback of Australia. But yeah, so this book can be picked up at Big W, and I'm sure it's probably, they've got it probably at the library. So there you go, Outback. So the next book is Bride of an Anzac. It is a true story, and it's by Queenie Sunderland, and she was born in 1897 and died in 2000. This book was created around her 100th birthday. It started off by just being for family and friends, but then it got bigger, and people loved reading it. So it's her amazing memories. She brings to life her life from 1897 to 2000, 10 decades, the struggles, having children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren. It is a brilliant book. It's a true story, and it is such a good book. I mean, the fact that it's an insight of 10 decades is amazing. Her wit, her brain was as sharp as anything. So for this book, I do give it a 5 out of 5. And it's also a very light read. So I really, really enjoyed it. So there you go, Bride of an Anzac, another obviously Australian story. Lily's War by June Francis. Lily dreams of romance and travel, which ends up becoming a reality when she meets Matt, an Australian preacher. As time goes on, Matt has to come back to Australia, and Lily can't leave Liverpool because of family commitments. So he's in Australia, she's over there, and then she stops hearing from him. So she goes to Australia, and starts looking for him. But war's looming very, very fast. She doesn't find him, so she goes back to Liverpool. It's a good book. Will they ever find each other again? You have to read it to find out. I would give it a 4.5 out of 5. Yeah, it is quite a good book. So there's another one for you to read if you want. Gunner Girls by Claire Harvey. Well, for starters, I only gave it a 3 out of 5. So it's about 3 women that decide to do their bit for king and country. So the 3 girls, Bea, she grew up in the East End, so she was a bit, that oh god blimey type girl. And she hasn't heard from her fella in months. Edie, the second girl, she comes from wealth, so she's a bit poshing up herself. And then Joan, now Joan's story is a bit more, like what happened. She can't remember her past. Her home and her family were bombed in the Blitz. So it is a story about these 3 girls. I felt it chopped and changed too much from one girl to the other, and I was like, hang on a minute. So although I love this sort of story, I wouldn't want anybody to rush out and buy it or anything else like that, because I honestly feel that it only deserves a 3 out of 5. Next book, We'll Meet Again by Cheryl Adnams. Yeah, this is a good book. I've actually got a few books with the title We'll Meet Again or We'll Meet Again something else, and by different authors. So this one, November 1941, a couple of Australian sisters, Elizabeth and Maggie, accompany their father to Hawaii, where there's a lot of flirtation going on with the Yanks, of course. But they do meet a couple of lads, the Baker brothers. On their way back to Australia, Pearl Harbor was bombed. And this for them was like, what's happened to the Baker brothers? So they get back to Australia and the war continues. And Elizabeth and Maggie fear they will never see the Baker brothers again. But do they? It's a good book, 5 out of 5. I've actually been to Pearl Harbor. Just thought I'd throw that bit in. Yeah, one of my many times travelling around. But yeah, so that's that book. I liked it. Good book. The Ambassador's Daughter by Pam Jenoff. Okay, Paris, 1919. All the world's leaders, they want to rebuild from the Great War, from the ashes, get it all happening again. Margot, the daughter of a diplomat, has felt like she's trapped in Paris, and she's still looked at as the enemy, being German. She really wants to return to Berlin, but then does she? In Berlin, she's got a wounded fiancé that she hardly knows. Does she love him? She's not sure. She becomes friends with Crozier, a musician, and George, a damaged naval officer. She starts to question where her loyalties are. A delicate web of lies in this book. It's very good. I'd say a 4 out of a 5. The German conflict thing. I think also for me, I was born in the 50s, so when I was brought up by parents that were very they were very anti certain things, put it that way, which is really, I'm so the opposite. I want to be the opposite. I think everybody's equal. But for them, it was all fresh and everything. So this book's a good read. It is a good read, 4 out of 5, which is not a bad score. Yeah, just listening to a few things. I mean, it sort of brought back some of the things my mum and dad, would say. When I think about some of the things they used to say, it just floors me now. I'm like, oh, my goodness, why would you say that? But anyway, so there you go. There's another book. Matilda is Missing by Caroline Overington. Okay, so the main character, whose name I think is absolutely ridiculous, her name is Softy, and she's a career woman, and she's got a nice apartment overlooking St Kilda Beach, so obviously another Aussie story, but her body clock is ticking away. So she marries Gary, and because he wants kids, so they have Matilda. 2 years later, they're in a custody battle over Matilda. That's where I'm leaving this, because I would only give it a 3 out of 5. It's one that you think, why that title? So, only a 3. I wouldn't rush out to buy it, but it's a book, and I read it. So this is going to be my last one for now. I'm going to make up this video and put it up. Obviously, I've read loads and loads of books, but you don't want a video with 100 books. So I will do some more in a couple of weeks' time. So there you go. Hope you've enjoyed it all. Okay, bye.